Hello, this is James Hudnall, and welcome to another episode of Creative Secrets. This one is about story versus plot and what that means. But before we get into that, I'd like to ask you to please subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already, and click the notification bell so you'll be notified of future episodes. It helps me to maintain this channel and also to help it grow, which I really need to do. So I appreciate your help. Thank you. A story can be told in a 1,200-page novel, in a 10-issue comic, or a 12-episode miniseries. It can be told in many lengths, but for practical purposes, to start out, we need to be able to tell a story in 2 to 3 sentences. That's right. You need to be able to tell your story in 2 to 3 sentences. The reason being that if you want to be a professional writer, you have to be able to pitch the story. And in order to interest people, like editors, you have to be able to describe it in such a way, in a very succinct amount of time, to keep their interest up and also to get them the idea. You need to tell it in such a way that they see it in their mind's eye. You want to get them thinking, wow, I really want to see where this goes. I want to see this play out. That's your goal, and I'll teach you how to do that. But first, you have to understand that doing a story succinctly also helps you to get your idea under control. A lot of people do these stories where they just randomly throw out some ideas, and they're not really a coherent story. They're just a bunch of loose ideas. Or they have like this general wandering plot. That is not how to do it. So let's not do that. Let's get to the science of doing it right. You might say, this is impossible. You can't tell a story in 2 or 3 sentences. Well, you can do it. In fact, it's done all the time. It's called a log line. And it's also, whenever you look in the movie description or TV guide or something like that, they give you a 2 or 3 sentence synopsis. Now I'm going to give you an example of a very famous story. Here it is. And it can be told in 2 or 3 sentences. A young man's family is murdered, and he seeks vengeance, so he goes out into the world and meets an old man who teaches him a bunch of tricks, which gives him the ability to defeat the evil lord, and in doing so becomes a hero. That is a very famous story. You probably imagine a bunch of stories like that. Well, that's because the story is called The Hero on a Quest, and it's been used as a basis for everything from Star Wars, Conan the Barbarian, a whole host of movies and books and novels, everything you can think of. It's been around for thousands of years, but the example is a good one. It could be told that simply. But of course, when you do your version, you're going to change the names. You're going to instead of a young man, you might say the hero's name, and the old man, you might say their name. But essentially, that's what it is. It can be boiled down succinctly like that. The other one that's probably comes in second after Hero on a Quest is Boy Meets Girl, which in modern times you could translate into multiple genders if you want. The point is that, again, there are very simple basic stories out there, but you make them unique by injecting your own personality and your own ideas, and you take it into new, fresh directions. Ultimately, no matter how big your story is, you have to be able to sell it to an editor or a movie company or something. In order to do that, you need to be able to boil it down initially into 2 or 3 sentences. Now that you understand that, let's get into plotting. What you're looking at is a chart created by the great writer Kurt Vonnegut, famous for Breakfast of Champions and Slaughterhouse-5. You should check them out. They're really good. Plus, they made a movie out of Slaughterhouse-5. But anyway, this chart simply and succinctly explains story plots and the way a story structure should be. And how it works is this. You have a 2-axis line. You have a line that goes across, which represents time from start to finish. The y-axis, which goes up and down, that charts the positive and negative things that can happen in the story. So the closer you are to the line in the middle, the x-axis, the less effective it is, but the farther away you get from it, north and south, the more intense it gets. So the farther up you go, the more positive it gets. The farther down you go, the more negative it gets. and that is the story values, which we'll get into in another chapter. But for simplicity's sake, I just want to show you this chart. Now what you see here are 4 examples of stories and the way their plot is structured. It's visualized so you can see it in a graphical sense, and that gives you a better ability to just instantly follow it. And then there's little descriptions below that sort of give the structure and definition of how it works. You can visually see from the plot how things go from bad to worse or up or down for the characters, and little graphic icons can give you a sense of events that happen in this plot. This is the sequence of events, and then it's also the positive and negative charges that happen in the story. I'll get into another chapter on positive and negative charges, which is very important. But to see the overall structure, is you can see it here. Now, a lot of people do things like plot holes, which are logic gaps in a story because they didn't think it through, and another person watching the story might say, wait, what about this? That doesn't make any sense. These two things don't connect. That's something you want to avoid, the plot hole and the logic gaps and things that are basically badly put together. So we'll get into that in more detail in another chapter. But the point is, I just want to make here, is that a story is the overall thing that you can describe succinctly. The plot are the details. The plot is the elements that make the story what it is. They're the scenes, and they're the actions, and then there's the things the characters do, and the sequence of events that happens over the course of time. A plot is basically how everything plays out. A story is what it's about. So a plot is how it happens, and a story is about what it's about. That's my simple explanation for you, but I'll get into everything in much more detail in later chapters. So please consider subscribing to this channel and ringing the notification bell, and check out my book, The Secrets of Writing, which is available on ebook sellers everywhere, and the physical copies can be bought from Amazon as well as the ebook. I will put the link in the description below, and also check out my new comic Agenda, which has a Kickstarter going right now. We would love to have you contribute and get it over the funding line. We're getting there, and I know it's the holidays, but we can use all the help we can get. So thank you very much, and I will see you soon.